Imagine this. You're sitting in a stuffy Seattle law office, rain pounding against the windows like a relentless drumbeat, and the air thick with that mix of polished wood and stale coffee. It's November 2025 and your heart's already shattered from losing your ex-husband Richard to a sudden heart attack that no one saw coming. But nothing prepares you for the gut punch moment when the lawyer clears his throat and drops the bomb. 7 sprawling Malibu estates, oceanfront paradises with infinity pools, private docks, and views that scream old Hollywood glamour go straight to your son Ethan and his flashy wife Vanessa. The room explodes in gasps, but Vanessa, she shoots up like she's just won the Powerball, her manicured nails clutching the deed papers as if they're golden tickets. Oh my God, Ethan, we're talking beachfront bliss, yacht parties, the whole 9 yards. This is our ticket to the good life. Finally! Her voice slices through the air, laced with that smug triumph she's perfected over the years. Her designer heels clicking as she paces, already plotting renovations that could bankrupt a small town. And you? Sophia Reynolds, 62 years young, with calloused hands from decades wrenching gears in engineering labs, you're left staring at the fine print, some rundown machining warehouse in Willow Creek, Montana. Worthless, they whisper, a consolation prize for the ex-wife who never fit their glossy world. The shock hits like a freight train. How could Richard, the man you built a life with before it all fell apart, do this? Betray you in death, leaving you scraps while Vanessa preens like a peacock? Your chest tightens, tears pricking your eyes, but you bite it back. That resilient fire from years of proving yourself in a man's world flickering just beneath the surface. Before we continue, take a moment to share where you're listening from and subscribe to the Ageless Bold Stories channel. I truly love seeing our stories reach across so many places and hearts. Together we're creating a space where every season of life still holds its own wonder, its own turning point. Now, let's ease ourselves back into the story. The fluorescent lights buzz overhead, casting harsh shadows on the mahogany conference table cluttered with legal pads and half-empty styrofoam cups. Outside, Seattle's infamous drizzle blurs the Space Needle in the distance, mirroring the fog settling in your mind. Greedy relatives, cousins you haven't seen since that awkward family reunion. In 15, uncles with dollar signs in their eyes lean forward like vultures, their whispers rustling like dry leaves. The lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, adjusts his wire-rimmed glasses, his voice droning on like a bad podcast. As per Mr. Richard Monroe's last will and testament, executed just 6 months prior, but then it lands, the Malibu bombshell. Vanessa's ecstasy peaks first, her face flushing pink as she grabs Ethan's arm, shaking him like a rag doll. Babe, can you believe it? 7 estates. We're going to host epic sunset soirees, maybe even get that influencer collab I've been dreaming about. This is us leveling up, finally ditching that cramped condo for real luxury. Her laughter rings out, sharp and performative, drawing nods and claps from the crowd. Ethan, your boy, 42 now, but still with that boyish mop of hair like his dad's, sits frozen. His tie suddenly too tight, his eyes darting to you with a flicker of unease. Vanessa, tone it down, he mutters under his breath, but she waves him off, already pulling out her phone to snap pics of the documents. Oh, come on, this is huge. Sophia, honey, no hard feelings, right? Your little warehouse thing. It's so, practical, rustic. Maybe turn it into a cute Airbnb for hunters or something. The mockery stings like salt in a fresh wound, her words dripping with that faux sympathy she's mastered, making your stomach churn. You feel the heat rising, that first emotional peak crashing over you, undervalued, invisible, the woman who fixed engines while they chased trends, now reduced to a punchline in her own family's drama. But hold on, because the tension coils tighter. The relatives pile on, Uncle Bob slapping Ethan on the back with a booming laugh. Kid, you're set. Malibu mansions. Talk about hitting the jackpot. Pass some of that sunshine my way. Cousin Linda chimes in, her voice syrupy sweet but eyes sharp as knives. Vanessa, you'll have to invite us for the housewarming. 7 parties, 7 chances to celebrate. The applause swells, a wave of second-hand excitement washing over the room. But you sit there, hands folded in your lap, feeling the isolation like a cold draft. Inside, resentment bubbles. How dare they celebrate while you grapple with memories of Richard, the late-night talks in that very Montana warehouse, tinkering with prototypes under flickering bulbs. Your mind races. Was this his final jab, or something more? Ethan's gaze meets yours again, guilt etching deeper lines on his face. But Vanessa pulls him into a hug, whispering loudly enough for all to hear. This is our future, Ethan. No more scraping by, pure paradise. The second emotional peak surges, betrayal from the grave, mixed with a mother's heartache seeing her son caught in the crossfire, his loyalty fracturing under Vanessa's glittery spell. You swallow hard, forcing a neutral expression, but your fingers tighten around the mysterious packet. The lawyer slipped you earlier, sealed, unmarked, heavy with unspoken promises. The rain intensifies outside, thunder rumbling like distant applause for Vanessa's show, as the lawyer tries to regain control. If we could proceed, but Vanessa interrupts, holding court like a reality TV star. Sorry, Mr. Hargrove, but this calls for a toast. Ethan, imagine waking up to ocean waves every day. No more rainy Seattle winters for us. She turns to you again, her smile predatory under the guise of kindness. Sophia, really, that warehouse in Montana? It's got that whole pioneer vibe. Suits you. Tough, no frills. Maybe store your old tools there or something. The dig lands and the room chuckles awkwardly, the third emotional peak hitting like a thunderclap. Raw humiliation, a lifetime of being the practical one, thrown back in your face, tears threatening but held at bay by sheer willpower. Your heart pounds, emotions swirling, shock from the unequal split, simmering anger at Vanessa's cruelty and a deep-seated hurt that Richard might have forgotten. The woman who stood by him through the lean years, yet beneath it all, that engineer's instinct kicks in, questioning the surface, sensing layers unspoken. As the meeting wraps, relatives filing out with backslaps and envious glances at Vanessa, you rise slowly, packet in hand, the air electric with unspoken questions. Ethan lingers, whispering, "Mum, this can't be right." But Vanessa drags him away, her voice fading down the hall. "Come on, let's plan our first Malibu getaway." You step into the storm alone, rain soaking your coat, the packet burning in your pocket like a live wire. What secrets does it hold? And how deep does Richard's game really go? The room still hummed with that electric buzz, like the aftermath of a big game win at a local bar, everyone riding high on Vanessa's glory. Cheers and backslaps echoed off the walls, Uncle Bob's gravelly voice booming over the chatter. "Hell yeah, Vanessa! Malibu's calling. Don't forget to send postcards from paradise." Cousin Linda piled on, her fake lashes batting as she hugged Vanessa like they were long-lost besties. "Girl, you're living the dream now. 7 estates? That's straight out of those HGTV shows. We gotta plan a girls' trip. Margaritas on the beach." The applause swelled again, a chorus of envy wrapped in congratulations. phones flashing as relatives snapped pics of the deeds like they were celebrity autographs. Vanessa lapped it up, twirling in her spot with that $1,000,000 smile, her voice pitching higher with each boast. You guys, this is just the beginning. Ethan's gonna quit that dead-end job, and we'll flip a couple of these bad boys for even more cash. Imagine the upgrades. Smart fridges that order your groceries. Home theaters bigger than a movie screen. Richard knew what he was doing, bless his heart. But underneath her sparkle, you caught it. A quick glance your way. That subtle smirk saying she'd always seen you as the outsider. The frumpy engineer who couldn't keep up with the Monroe's shine. The air felt thicker now, laced with the scent of cheap cologne and cooling coffee, the rain outside drumming harder like it was trying to drown out the farce. Ethan, though, your Ethan, sat there like a statue in his pressed shirt, his face paling under the fluorescent glare. He fiddled with his wedding band, twisting it like a lifeline, his eyes darting between Vanessa's performance and you. The unease rolled off him in waves. You could see it in the way his shoulders hunched, the same way they did back when he was a kid caught sneaking cookies. As the crowd started milling toward the door, swapping emails for future invites, he finally leaned over, his whisper cutting through the noise like a knife. Mom, I'm sorry, this doesn't sit right. Dad wouldn't have left you with just that old warehouse. It's gotta be a mistake, right? We'll figure it out, maybe talk to the lawyer after. His voice cracked a bit, that mix of guilt and confusion hitting you square in the chest. You wanted to hug him, tell him it was okay, but Vanessa swooped in like a hawk, linking her arm through his. Ethan, sweetie, don't be such a downer. This is our moment. Sophia's tough. She'll make something out of that Montana shack. Right, Sophia? No hard feelings? Her words hung there, sweet as poison, and Ethan's face flushed, caught in the tug of war. He shot you another apologetic look, mouthing, "We'll talk later," but Vanessa was already steering him away, chattering about booking flights to check out the properties. The first emotional peak washed over you then, a sharp pang of maternal protectiveness, seeing your son trapped in her web, his loyalty fraying like old rope. You stayed seated for a beat longer, letting the room empty out, the echoes of laughter fading like a bad dream. Mr. Hargrove shuffled his papers, giving you a sympathetic nod. Mrs. Reynolds, if you have any questions about the warehouse deed, but you waved him off politely, your fingers tightening around that mysterious packet. Thick, sealed with Richard's familiar wax stamp, the one he'd used for important letters back in the day. It felt heavy in your hand, like it carried the weight of unspoken truths, and a flicker of curiosity sparked amid the hurt. What was Richard playing at? You remembered those late-night drives to Montana during your marriage, tinkering in that warehouse with half-baked inventions, laughing over greasy takeout. Was this his way of pulling you back into something bigger, or just a cruel joke from beyond the grave? Standing up, your joints protesting after the long sit, you slipped the packet into your purse, the leather worn soft from years of use. The relatives trickled out, a few offering pitying glances. Hang in there, Sophia. But you held your head high, that quiet strength bubbling up, the kind forged in male-dominated machine shops, where you'd proven your mettle time and again. Outside, the storm hit full force, wind whipping rain against your face as you dashed to your hybrid SUV, the wipers slashing back and forth like angry metronomes. Sliding into the driver's seat, water dripping from your coat onto the worn upholstery, you cranked the heat and gripped the wheel, the engine humming to life with that familiar reliability. Seattle's streets blurred past, neon signs flickering through the downpour, traffic crawling like snails on the slick pavement. Your mind raced faster than the car, replaying Vanessa's taunts, Ethan's whisper, the room's cheers that felt like slaps. Resentment simmered, that second emotional peak building, a deep-seated anger at Richard for this public humiliation, for making you the butt of the family's joke. But doubt crept in too. Richard had always been a planner, the guy who saw 10 moves ahead in chess while you fixed the broken pieces. The packet sat in your purse like a ticking bomb, tempting you to rip it open right there at a red light. Horns blared around you, the city alive with evening rush, but inside isolation wrapped tight. 62 years old, divorced, now apparently destitute in the eyes of your own kin. Tears blurred your vision, mixing with the rain on the windshield, but you blinked them back, that resilient core kicking in. "Get a grip, Sophia," you muttered to yourself, voice steady in the quiet cab. There's more to this. As you merged onto the highway toward your waterfront condo, the storm raging like your churning thoughts, a third emotional peak crested, a raw vulnerability, wondering if this was rock bottom or just the setup for something explosive. The packet whispered promises, hinting at depths you couldn't yet fathom, leaving you hanging on the edge. What if Richard's final act wasn't betrayal, but a lifeline disguised as loss? The drive stretched on, the storm unrelenting, your heart pounding with anticipation, the mystery pulling you forward into the unknown. Alone in her cozy waterfront condo, the kind with creaky hardwood floors and views of Puget Sound that shimmered even through the relentless November rain, Sophia finally let the weight of the day crash over her. She kicked off her sensible loafers by the door, the packet from Richard burning a hole in her purse like unfinished business. The place was quiet, too quiet, save for the distant hum of the fridge and the patter of rain against the bay windows. She flicked on the lamp, its warm glow chasing shadows across the living room, cluttered with engineering books and half-finished crossword puzzles, reminders of nights spent alone since the divorce. Pouring herself a mug of strong black coffee from the Mr. Coffee machine that had seen better days, she sank into her worn recliner, the one Richard had teased her about keeping because it was built like a tank. Her hands trembled slightly as she slid open the seal, pulling out the crisp pages covered in Richard's familiar scrawl, neat, deliberate, like the blueprints they used to sketch together. "My dearest Sophia," it began, and just like that, the words pulled her under, explaining everything in that no-nonsense way of his. The Malibu estates, not the golden ticket everyone thought. They were booby traps, loaded with sky-high loans that would balloon in this shaky economy, property taxes that could choke a horse, and maintenance fees that'd eat through savings like termites through wood. "It's not revenge, Soph," the letter read. "It's a wake-up call for Ethan. Vanessa's got him wrapped around her finger, chasing status like it's oxygen. This'll force him to see the real cost of things or lose it all." Her breath caught, a mix of shock and dawning understanding washing over her. The first threads of Richard's grand plan unraveling like a well-oiled machine. As she read on, the condo faded away and her mind tumbled back to that crisp fall day in 2023, 2 years earlier, when Richard had called out of the blue, his voice gravelly over the phone like he'd been chain-smoking worries. "Soph, we need to talk. Not here in Seattle, somewhere off the grid. Meet me at that old diner in Montana, the one near the warehouse. Thursday, noon sharp." She'd agreed, curiosity overriding the old divorce scars, packing her hybrid for the long drive through the Cascades. The road winding like a ribbon through evergreen forests dusted with early snow. The diner, Joe's Joint, with its faded sign and booths sticky from years of spilled syrup, smelled of fryer grease and strong coffee, the kind that could strip paint. Richard was already there, hunched in a corner booth, looking thinner than she remembered, his silver hair unkempt, eyes shadowed like he hadn't slept in weeks. "You look like hell, Richard," she'd said, sliding in across from him, straight to the point as always. He managed a weak chuckle, stirring his black coffee with a spoon that clinked against the mug. "Straight shooter as ever, Soph. Yeah, I'm not great. Docs say it's my ticker. Congestive heart failure, genetic crap. Maybe a year, tops if I'm lucky." The words landed like a sucker punch, her coffee turning bitter in her mouth. They'd been divorced for a decade, but damn if it didn't sting. Memories flooding back of their early days, young and broke, building prototypes in that Montana warehouse, dreaming big over cheap beer. "Why tell me now?" she'd asked, her voice steady but her hands gripping the table edge. He leaned forward, eyes intense. "Because Ethan's in trouble, and you're the only one I trust to help pull him out." The flashback sharpened, the diner's jukebox playing some old Johnny Cash tune in the background, the waitress in her faded apron refilling their cups without a word. Richard pulled out a folder thick as a phone book, spreading spreadsheets across the Formica table, financial projections that made Sophia's engineer's brain kick into gear. "Look at this mess, those Malibu places I snapped up. Leverage city, adjustable rates that'll spike with the next Fed hike, taxes jacked up from all the wildfires and insurance nightmares. Ethan's income won't touch the monthly nut." She'd scanned the numbers, her finger tracing the red ink. "Richard, this is suicide. Why buy them if they're poison pills?" He sighed, rubbing his temples. "For Vanessa. She's turned our boy into a yes man, all about the flash, the designer bags, the influencer gigs, the endless social climbing. I've tested her, Soph. Dropped hints about cutting back, maybe downsizing the business, and she freaks. Starts grilling Ethan about the will, researching my assets like a shark smelling blood." His voice cracked then, the vulnerability hitting her hard. "She's not in it for him, it's the Monroe name, the bank account. If I leave him cushy, she'll bleed him dry. But this? It'll expose her, force Ethan to man up or crash and burn." Sophia felt a chill, not from the drafty diner window, but from the calculated cruelty of it all. Tough love wrapped in financial dynamite. "And me? What's my role in this scheme of yours?" Richard's eyes softened, reaching across to squeeze her hand, his grip weaker than she remembered. "You're the safety net, Soph. The warehouse, it's not junk. Remember our old inheritance machining idea? That AI gizmo we brainstormed?" The letter in her hands now echoed that moment, pulling her back to the present as rain lashed the condo windows like angry fingers. Richard's words leaped off the page. "Vanessa will celebrate like she hit the lotto, but those estates are ticking time bombs, designed to teach Ethan the difference between real assets and shiny shackles." Sophia's heart raced, piecing it together, the emotional undercurrent swelling as grief mingled with a reluctant respect for Richard's foresight. He'd always been the visionary, the one spotting opportunities where she saw nuts and bolts. But this, playing God with their son's life, it felt risky, borderline heartless, yet she couldn't deny the logic. Ethan had coasted too long on privilege, Vanessa's claws digging deeper each year. She set the letter down for a second, sipping her cooling coffee, the steam fogging her reading glasses. Outside, a ferry horn blared across the sound, a lonely call in the night, mirroring her isolation. What if Ethan couldn't handle the fall? What if this broke him for good? Anxiety gnawed at her, that maternal instinct flaring like a warning light on a dashboard. But Richard's plan had layers, she knew, always did. Flipping the page, her eyes widened at the next revelation, the setup for something bigger looming like storm clouds on the horizon. The warehouse wasn't just a relic, it was the key to everything, a hidden gem in Montana's rugged hills, waiting to flip the script on Vanessa's smug victory. As thunder rumbled overhead, Sophia leaned back, the letter trembling in her hands, the tension coiling tighter. Would this be redemption or ruin? The flashback lingered, Richard's voice echoing in her mind. Trust me, Sophie, it's the only way to save him. The letter's pages crinkled under Sophia's fingers as she turned them, the words pulling her deeper into Richard's intricate web, each sentence like a gear clicking into place in some grand machine. Now, about that warehouse in Willow Creek, Richard wrote, his tone shifting to that excited lilt she remembered from their brainstorming sessions. It's not the dusty relic everyone thinks. Remember inheritance machining? That wild idea we cooked up back in the day, blending AI with old school CNC rigs to inherit the best tweaks from past runs, making parts smarter, faster, greener? Her mind raced, connecting the dots. Yeah, she remembered all right. Those weekends holed up in the Montana facility, scribbling algorithms on napkins while the wind howled outside. It was their pet project, born from her engineering know-how and his business savvy, a system where machines learned from historical data, optimizing everything from toolpaths to material waste, cutting energy use by half. But they'd shelved it years ago, life and the divorce getting in the way. Now, the letter spilled the beans. Richard had revived it in secret, pouring his last years into upgrading the prototypes hidden right there in the warehouse. I've got contracts lined up with the big guns, Ford for EV components, SpaceX for lightweight aerospace bits, even GE sniffing around for turbine parts. We're talking royalties starting at $4 million a year, debt-free, scalable as hell. And get this, Soph, it's perfect for 2025's hot trends. With all this reshoring push after the supply chain messes, companies are clamoring for homegrown, eco-friendly manufacturing. AI that slashes waste by 40%, runs on wind power from turbines I installed on site. It's a goldmine in this green rush economy. Sophia's coffee went cold in her mug as she absorbed it, the numbers dancing in her head like equations solving themselves. Sustainable income, no ballooning loans, just pure renewable profit. A rush of vindication surged through her, that first emotional high, cresting like a wave breaking on the sound outside her window. Finally, proof that Richard hadn't forgotten her, hadn't written her off as the practical ex who'd chosen stability over his high-flying world. No, this was him trusting her, handing her the real prize while the others chased fool's gold. She could picture Vanessa's face if she knew, that smug grin crumbling like cheap plaster. He saw it coming, Sophia whispered to the empty room, a small smile tugging at her lips, despite the storm raging beyond the glass. The condo felt warmer now, the lamp's glow casting long shadows that danced like possibilities. But as the thrill settled, worry gnawed at the edges, a quieter undercurrent pulling her back down. Ethan, her sweet, conflicted Ethan, was out there, probably already swept up in Vanessa's whirlwind plans, blind to the financial storm brewing. The letter nailed it. Ethan'll hit the wall hard, Soph. Bills stacking up like Jenga blocks in this jittery market, interest rates climbing, insurance premiums through the roof with all those California wildfires. It'll test him, show Vanessa's true colours. Sophia's chest tightened, imagining her son's calls turning frantic, his voice cracking over the phone as reality bit. At 42, he was no kid anymore, but damn if he didn't still tug at her heartstrings. That boy who'd always leaned on Dad's wallet and now Vanessa's schemes. What if the crash broke him? What if he resented Richard or her for letting it happen? Anxiety coiled in her gut, mixing with the vindication like oil and water, leaving her restless in the recliner. She set the letter aside for a moment, standing to pace the small living room, her socks whispering against the hardwood. The rain had eased to a steady drizzle, fogging the windows and blurring the city lights across the water. Seattle at night, alive with ferries, chugging along like faithful old trucks. Sophia wiped a hand across the glass, staring out at the distant glow of the Space Needle, a beacon in the murk. It reminded her of Richard's optimism, always pointing to the next big thing. Inheritance machining, she murmured, testing the words again. It wasn't just tech, it was their legacy, reborn in that forgotten Montana spot amid the rolling hills and crisp air. She'd driven there last summer on a whim, the warehouse standing like a sentinel against the big sky, its metal siding rusted but sturdy, equipment gathering dust inside. Little did she know Richard had been sneaking upgrades, AI interfaces humming quietly, data servers tucked away, all powered by those wind turbines whirring on the roof like silent guardians. The contracts he mentioned, she could see the appeal in 2025's buzz. Companies scrambling to go green after the latest climate reports, reshoring factories from overseas amid trade wars and shipping snarls. Ford needing efficient EV battery casings, SpaceX hungry for precision rocket parts without the carbon footprint. Millions rolling in quarterly, no mortgages or HOA fees to bleed it dry. It was smart, sustainable wealth, the kind she'd always preached about, fixing things that lasted instead of buying flashy junk that broke. But the worry lingered, a shadow over the excitement, building that second emotional peak. Pride in Richard's genius clashing with fear for Ethan's pain, her mind flashing to potential heartbreak ahead. Leaning against the window frame, the cool glass pressing against her forehead, Sophia flipped back to the letter, hungry for more details. Richard had outlined it all, how he'd negotiated the deals through shell companies, keeping it under wraps to avoid Vanessa's prying eyes. Activate them after the dust settles, he urged. Use the windfall wisely, Soph. Help Ethan rebuild when he's ready. Show him what real security looks like, not Vanessa's Instagram illusions. Her thoughts spiraled, the vindication swelling again into a fierce protectiveness, that third emotional crest hitting hard. A mother's resolve steeling against the storm. She could do this, be the anchor when everything else sank. But the impending crash loomed large, a step closer to the high-stakes drama Richard had engineered. What if Ethan called tonight, already sensing cracks in the Malibu facade? Or worse, what if Vanessa dragged him deeper into debt before the truth hit? The letter ended with a postscript. Trust the plan, Soph. It's tough love, but it's love. She folded the pages carefully, tucking them away, the condo suddenly feeling like a command center rather than a lonely nest. Outside, the rain picked up again, thunder grumbling like a warning, mirroring the tension building in her chest. The revelation had flipped everything, but the real test was coming. Ethan's world teetering on the edge, ready to plunge. How long until the first cracks showed? And would she be strong enough to catch him when he fell? The night stretched on, full of questions. The mystery of inheritance machining, now a beacon, drawing her toward an uncertain dawn. Days blurred into weeks after that stormy November night in 2025, with Sophia nursing her coffee in the condo, the letter from Richard tucked away like a secret weapon, its revelations simmering in her mind. The initial silence from Ethan felt like a held breath, but then the calls started trickling in, first a voicemail left in the glow of his excitement, his voice bubbly like a kid on Christmas morning. Mom, you won't believe it. We flew down to Malibu last weekend. Those estates are insane. Ocean crashing right at your feet. Pools that look like they belong in a magazine. Vanessa's already sketching out Renos. She's talking voice-activated lights. Solar panels to go green and trendy. This is the life Dad wanted for us. Sophia replayed it, a pang twisting in her gut. happy for his joy but knowing from Richard's warnings that the honeymoon phase was just the calm before the financial hurricane. She'd murmur responses in their quick chats, keeping her tone neutral, probing gently. "Sounds amazing, Ethan. You checked the paperwork. Any surprises in the fine print?" He'd laugh it off, Vanessa's voice echoing in the background. "Tell her we're golden, babe." But Sophia could hear the undercurrent, that tiny hitch in his confidence, like an engine misfiring just before it stalls. As December rolled in, blanketing Seattle in that damp chill that seeped into your bones, the call's shifted tone, Ethan's enthusiasm cracking like thin ice underfoot. One evening, as Sophia stirred a pot of chili on her old gas stove, the kind that clicked reliably to life, the phone buzzed, Ethan's number lighting up the screen. "Mum, hey, so we got the first batch of bills today. Property taxes on just one place, it's like 20 grand a quarter. And that's before the HOA fees. Those suckers add up for pools and security gates." His voice wavered, the thrill gone, replaced by an edge of confusion, like he'd bitten into an apple and found a worm. Sophia leaned against the counter, the steam from the chili fogging her glasses, her heart sinking as she pictured him hunched over a kitchen table in some rented LA spot, spreadsheets glaring back. 7 estates, Ethan, that's a lot to juggle. You talked to Vanessa about budgeting? He sighed, heavy and defeated. She's all in on the upgrades. Says we gotta invest to impress. Smart home gadgets that sync with your phone, automated blinds, even a wine cellar conversion in the biggest one. "It's the vibe, Ethan," she keeps saying, and her Insta's blowing up. Posts of sunset views with captions like "Living the dream in Malibu royalty." Thousands of likes already. Sophia felt the worry knot tighter, Richard's predictions playing out like a bad movie script, Vanessa pushing the gas pedal while the tank ran dry. By January, with New Year's resolutions already fading and the economy jittering from fresh interest rate hikes, headlines blaring about inflation bites and housing bubbles, Ethan's calls turned downright terrified, coming at odd hours like distress signals from a sinking ship. Sophia was bundled in her recliner one sleety night, flipping through an old engineering journal under the lamp's glow, when the phone jolted her. "Mom, it's bad, really bad. The loans on 6 of them are adjustable rate. Rates just jumped and our monthly hit's up to 50K. 50,000, Mum. Our savings are draining like a sieve, and Vanessa, she's maxing cards on these trendy Nest cams and Alexa hubs, saying security's key for high-end flips. But we're not flipping, we're sinking." His words tumbled out, panic rising like bile, and Sophia could hear the clink of ice in a glass. Maybe bourbon to steady his nerves. She paced the condo, the hardwood cold under her socks, rain streaking the windows like tears. "Ethan, slow down. Have you sat her down, run the numbers?" He let out a bitter laugh. "Tried. She calls it weak thinking. Says real winners don't sweat the small stuff. Focus on the big picture. Her feed's all fake glamour now. Staged pics of champagne toast on empty patios, hashtags like Malibu Magic and Inherited Empire. But behind the scenes, we're arguing non-stop. I suggested pausing the spends, maybe rent one out for cash flow, and she flipped, said it'd ruin the aesthetic." Sophia's chest ached, that maternal urge to shield him clashing with Richard's plan to let him learn the hard way, the tension building like pressure in a faulty valve. The bills kept piling, a relentless avalanche amid 2025's economic roller coaster. Stock dips, job cuts in tech, even whispers of recession making every dollar stretch thinner. Ethan's next call came mid-February, his voice hollow over the line as Sophia shoveled snow from her condo's walkway, the crunch under her boots mirroring her grinding worry. "Mum Falal, insurance quotes came in, flood risks from those coastal spots, through the roof after last year's storms. We're talking another 10 grand a month just to cover basics. Our nest eggs half gone already, and Vanessa's booking contractors for infinity pool edges, saying it'll boost resale. Think positive, Ethan, manifest the wealth. But I'm up nights crunching numbers. We can't sustain this. The fear in his tone hit her like a cold gust. Sophia pausing with shovel in hand, breath fogging the air. She could visualize Vanessa scrolling her phone, oblivious or willful, her social media empire built on borrowed time, viral reels of touring our Malibu kingdom, filters hiding the empty rooms and mounting stress. She's turning it into a brand, Ethan confessed, collaborating with influencers for sponsored posts, but the ad money's peanuts compared to the outflow. Sophia felt the drama escalating, Richard's traps snapping shut one by one, exposing the cracks in Ethan's marriage and Vanessa's facade. Yet she held back the warehouse secret. Per the plan, her voice steady. Ethan, maybe it's time for hard talks, real ones. But he hung up deflated, the line going dead like a lifeline cut, leaving her staring at the snowy landscape, the high stakes unraveling just beginning. As spring teased with early thaws, the calls crescendoed to a fever pitch, Ethan's terror palpable, a stepping stone to the inevitable blow-up. One March afternoon, as Sophia tinkered with a broken coffee maker in her kitchen, wires splayed like veins, the phone rang again. Mom, we missed a payment deadline on 2 estates, banks breathing down our necks, late fees stacking, credit tanking. Vanessa's solution? More spending. She's ordering these high-tech gadgets, like robot vacuums that map the house and fridges that suggest recipes. It's the future, Ethan. Smart homes sell themselves. But our savings? Down to fumes in this crazy market, with gas prices spiking and groceries through the roof. His breathing ragged like he'd run a marathon, and Sophia gripped the counter, tools forgotten. The economic jitters of 2025 amplified everything. Fed moves rattling loans, climate claims jacking insurance, Vanessa's lavish pushes like gasoline on a fire. Her social media? An explosion of curated lies, glossy videos of our eco upgrades in paradise, hiding the red ink bleeding through. She's dismissing my fears, Mom, calls me a pessimist, says winners visualize success, but I'm terrified. What if we lose it all? Sophia's heart pounded, the build-up to confrontation looming, Richard's lesson barreling toward its brutal peak. She offered calm advice, but inside the worry churned. How much more could Ethan take before the facade shattered? The calls were her lifeline to his downfall, each one ratcheting the tension, a prelude to the raw betrayals ahead. As spring gave way to the sweltering heat of early summer in 2025, with Seattle's rare blue skies mocking the turmoil in Ethan's life, the foreclosures came crashing down like a house of cards in a stiff breeze. Sophia was out on her condo's balcony one muggy June morning, nursing a lukewarm tea and watching sailboats bob on the sound, when Ethan's call pierced the calm, his voice a raw whisper like he'd been yelling all night. Mom, it's over. The bank seized the first 2 estates yesterday. Auction notices slapped on the doors, locks changed overnight. We drove down to Malibu and there they were, our dream homes cordoned off like crime scenes. Sophia's grip tightened on the railing, the metal warm under her fingers, as she pictured the scene. Palm trees swaying indifferently, ocean waves indifferent to the human wreckage. Richard's predictions had hit with brutal accuracy, the adjustable loans spiking amid the Fed's latest rate tweaks, insurance claims denied after a freak coastal storm, and those HOA fees piling up like unpaid bar tabs. Ethan, what about the others? Can you salvage anything? She asked, her tone steady but her mind racing, knowing this was the tipping point Richard had engineered. He hesitated, the line crackling with his exhaustion. We're scrambling, but Vanessa, she's in denial, says we sue the bank, claim some loophole, but Mom, our credit's shot. No one's lending us a dime in this market crunch. The confrontation brewed like a summer storm, tensions boiling over in Ethan's rented Malibu bungalow. A temporary crash pad that reeked of desperation, with unpacked boxes and takeout containers littering the counters. Sophia pieced it together from Ethan's frantic texts and late-night vents, her phone buzzing like an alarm she couldn't silence. One scorching July evening, as wildfires smoked the California horizon, headlines screaming about record blazes jacking up property risks, Ethan finally laid it all out. I begged her, Mom, sat her down with the spreadsheets, showed her the math. Sell at least 4, pay off the loans on the rest, maybe walk away with a nest egg. Vanessa, we're drowning. Tax liens incoming, utilities cut off on 3 places already. But she exploded, face red as a tomato, throwing her phone across the room. Sophia could hear the echo in his recounting, Vanessa's voice shrill in his imitation. Sell? And admit we're failures? This is our brand, Ethan. I've got collabs lined up, sponsored posts for smart thermostats, eco-friendly paint lines. Winners don't quit, they pivot. The rage peaked there. Vanessa pacing like a caged tiger, her perfectly highlighted hair disheveled for once, eyes flashing with that mix of fury and fear. Ethan had pushed back, his own temper flaring after months of bottled-up stress. This isn't a pivot, it's bankruptcy. Your vibe is costing us everything Dad left. The fight escalated, doors slamming, accusations flying, Vanessa hurling barbs about his weak spine, him firing back about her endless spending sprees on gadgets that sat unopened. Sophia felt the gut wrench as he described it, that raw unraveling of a marriage built on sand. Richard's traps forcing the ugly truth to surface. In the aftermath, as the California sun dipped low, painting the sky in fiery oranges that mirrored the chaos, Vanessa vanished like smoke, packing an overnight bag and peeling out in her leased SUV, tires squealing on the driveway. Ethan called Sophia that night, his voice breaking over the line from a cheap motel room, the hum of a vending machine in the background. She's gone, Mom. Left a note saying she needs space to manifest positivity. But then the divorce papers hit my email this morning, served digitally cold as ice. She's claiming half of whatever's left, the remaining estates, our joint accounts, even my 401k. Irreconcilable differences, it says, but we both know it's the money, or lack of it. Sophia sat bolt upright in her bed, the condo dark save for the city lights filtering through the blinds, her heart pounding with a mix of sorrow and quiet vindication. Vanessa's true colours had bled through just as Richard predicted. Abandoning ship the moment the luxury liner started sinking, her social media going silent on the Malibu saga, pivoting to vague posts about new beginnings and self-care retreats. Ethan choked up describing it. She didn't even fight for us, Mum. Just lawyered up, demanding spousal support, like this was all my fault. The estates, 3 more in foreclosure now. Auctions set for next week. We're fire selling the last 2 at a loss, barely enough to cover the debts after fees. The betrayal stung deep, Ethan's dreams shattering like glass underfoot, his once comfortable life reduced to credit alerts and collection calls amid the year's economic squeeze. Hitting rock bottom came swift and merciless, the kind of fall that strips a man bare, leaving him raw and reckoning with his choices. By late August, with heat waves baking the west coast and news cycles droning about housing crashes, Ethan pieced together the remnants, liquidating what little was left, maxing out favours from old friends for a beat-up Ford pickup that guzzled gas like a thirsty hound. Sophia fielded his calls daily now, her voice a steady anchor as he navigated the wreckage. "Mum, the lawyers say bankruptcy's inevitable. Credit ruined? No job prospects with this hanging over me. Vanessa's camp's fighting dirty, claiming I hid assets." The irony burned. Hidden assets. When the real treasure sat untouched in Montana, but Sophia bit her tongue, per Richard's script, offering comfort without spoilers. Then, one crisp September afternoon, as leaves started turning in Seattle's parks, a knock echoed through her condo door. She opened it to find Ethan on the stoop, looking 10 years older, stubble shadowing his jaw, eyes red-rimmed from the long drive up the coast, his worldly goods crammed into black trash bags slung over his shoulder. The pickup idled curbside, dented and dusty, a far cry from the sleek sedans he'd once driven. "Mum, I got nothing left. Crashed at motels, scraped gas money from odd jobs. Vanessa's taken her half and run, probably already hunting the next big score." He collapsed into her hug, shoulders shaking, dreams utterly shattered, the weight of failure crushing him like an avalanche. Sophia held him tight, the scent of road dust and despair clinging to his shirt, her own emotions churning, heartbreak for his pain, but a flicker of hope that this bottom was the launch pad Richard had intended. The raw confrontations had stripped away the illusions, forcing Ethan to face the betrayals head-on, each step a brutal climb toward the story's emotional peak. As they sat in her living room that night, chili simmering on the stove like old times, Ethan poured it all out, the rage at Vanessa's vanishing act, the anger at Richard's cryptic will, the self-doubt gnawing like rust on metal. "How did I let it get this bad, Mum? Blind to her games, chasing that fake glamour while everything crumbled." Sophia listened, stirring the pot, the steam carrying hints of cumin and comfort, knowing the climax loomed. His rock bottom was the doorway to revelation, but the pain cut deep, leaving scars that would shape what came next. Outside, the first fall rain pattered against the windows, a somber soundtrack to his shattered dreams, the tension hanging thick. Would he rise from the ashes or stay buried in the rubble? The night stretched on, full of tears and truths, a stepping stone to the turnaround, waiting in Montana's shadows. Sophia watched Ethan slump on her couch that September night, the weight of his shattered world pressing down like a lead blanket, his trash bags of belongings scattered like debris from a wreck. The chili had gone cold on the stove, but she reheated it anyway, forcing him to eat something, mother's instinct kicking in amid the chaos. As he picked at the bowl, spilling bits about Vanessa's cold exit and the lawyers circling like sharks, Sophia's mind turned to Richard's letter, the warehouse waiting in Montana like a buried treasure chest. She couldn't hold back forever. The boy, man really, was at his breaking point, eyes hollow from months of financial freefall. "Ethan," she said softly, setting her own bowl aside, the condo filled with the scent of spices and rain-soaked air from the cracked window. "Pack a bag. We're taking a road trip tomorrow, to Willow Creek." He looked up, confusion furrowing his brow. "Montana? Mom, that's a haul. 8 hours easy. And for what? That old warehouse Dad left you? It's probably falling apart. Full of rust and memories." She just nodded, her voice firm but kind. "Trust me, son, sometimes you gotta see things with your own eyes to believe 'em." He shrugged, too drained to argue. Crashing on her pull-out sofa that night, the city hum lulling him to uneasy sleep, while Sophia stared at the ceiling, Richard's words echoing. The time had come to flip the script. The next morning dawned crisp and clear, a rare Seattle gift after weeks of drizzle, the kind of day that made you believe in fresh starts. Sophia loaded her hybrid SUV with thermoses of coffee, sandwiches from the corner deli, roast beef on rye, Ethan's favourite since he was a kid, and a cooler of sodas, the engine purring to life as they hit I-90 East. Ethan slouched in the passenger seat, fiddling with the radio, country tunes crackling through the speakers as they left the urban sprawl behind, trading skyscrapers for the Cascade Mountains' jagged peaks, dusted with early snow. The drive stretched out like therapy on wheels, Ethan opening up in fits and starts, venting about Vanessa's last text, a curt demand for her share of the marital assets, how her Instagram had pivoted to solo adventures in Vegas, all glowy filters and empowerment quotes. She never loved me, Mum. It was the lifestyle, the Monroe name, Dad's shadow. I was just the ticket. Sophia gripped the wheel, nodding along the highway, humming beneath them as they passed semis and billboards, hawking everything from casinos to truck stops. Your dad saw it coming, Ethan. He tried to warn you in his way. He scoffed, staring out at the rolling hills turning golden in the fall light. By screwing me over? Leaving me those money pits while you got the short end? Doesn't add up. She smiled inwardly, the secret bubbling like anticipation. Richard's tough love blueprint unfolding mile by mile, the warehouse drawing them closer like a magnet. By midday, they crossed into Montana, the landscape opening up wide, big sky country living up to its name, endless prairies dotted with cattle ranches and windmills spinning lazily in the breeze. They stopped at a roadside diner in Spokane for burgers, greasy, no-frills patties on sesame buns with crinkle-cut fries that crunched just right. Ethan perking up a bit with the comfort food, reminiscing about family road trips back in the day. Remember when Dad dragged us to Yellowstone? Bears and geysers, thought we'd get eaten alive. Sophia chuckled, wiping ketchup from her chin. Your dad always had a plan even then, pushed us out of our comfort zones. The conversation lightened the mood, but tension simmered underneath, Ethan's questions probing. So this warehouse, why now? You gonna sell it off? Pocket some cash? She evaded with a wink. Patience, son. Good things come to those who wait. As they pushed on, the sun dipping toward the Rockies, Willow Creek came into view, a sleepy town with a single stoplight, grain silos towering like sentinels, pickup trucks parked outside the local bar. The facility loomed on the outskirts, a squat metal building weathered by years of wind and snow, its sign faded but sturdy. Monroe Machining Works. Sophia pulled up, gravel crunching under the tires, killing the engine. Home sweet home or something like it. Ethan eyed it skeptically, stepping out into the crisp air scented with pine and earth. Looks like a ghost from the past. What are we doing here, Mom? Inside, the warehouse creaked to life as Sophia flipped the lights, fluorescent bulbs flickering on, illuminating rows of machines draped in tarps, the air thick with the faint tang of oil and metal shavings. She led him through, her steps purposeful, pulling back covers to reveal the prototypes. Sleek CNC rigs interface with glowing screens, AI modules humming softly like sleeping beasts. Ethan's brow furrowed. What is all this? Looks high-tech, not the junk I expected. Sophia's heart raced as she booted up a console, screens blooming with data streams and schematics. This, Ethan, is inheritance machining, your dad and I's brainchild, from way back. AI systems that inherit the smartest tweaks from past runs, optimizing parts for efficiency, cutting waste like nobody's business, eco-friendly, smart as a whip. He leaned in, eyes widening as she demoed it, a virtual simulation whirring to life, showing toolpaths refining in real time, energy savings popping up in green stats. Dad kept this going in secret. She nodded, pulling out Richard's letter from her bag, reading excerpts aloud. The contracts with Ford for EV housings, SpaceX for precision thrusters, GE eyeing turbine blades. Deals kicking in next quarter, 4 million yearly royalties, scalable, no debt hanging over it, and timed perfect for 2025's reshoring boom. Companies pulling factories home after all those supply chain nightmares, going green to beat the climate regs, wind turbines on the roof, power it all, it's sustainable gold. Ethan's face drained of colour, reeling back like he'd been slapped, the shock hitting him square. The realization dawned slow, then fast, Ethan's hands trembling as he gripped a workbench, the metal cool under his palms. He set me up. The Malibu traps, debts, foreclosures, Vanessa bailing. It was all a master plan? Tough love to wake me up? Sophia placed a hand on his shoulder, her voice gentle amid the hum of the machines. Your dad loved you too much to let you coast, Ethan. Saw Vanessa's game, knew the easy money would ruin you. This is the real inheritance, built to last, not flash and crash. Tears welled in his eyes, a mix of betrayal and awe crashing over him. The warehouse suddenly alive with possibility, the AI interfaces blinking like watchful eyes. But why hide it? Why let me hit bottom? She sighed, the weight of Richard's scheme heavy in the air. To make sure you earned it, son, learn the difference between fool's gold and the real deal. He paced the concrete floor, boots echoing, mind whirling with the twist. Millions waiting, timed for the year's manufacturing renaissance, companies hungry for AI-optimized parts amid trade tariffs and eco-push. The shock peaked, Ethan collapsing onto a stool, head in hands. Dad was a genius, or a bastard, maybe both. Sophia watched, hope flickering as despair lifted, the turnaround beginning in that dusty space, but the full weight of it all hanging like a cliff's edge. What came next could rebuild or break him further. As the sun set over the Montana hills, painting the warehouse windows in golden hues, Ethan explored the rigs, fingers tracing the sleek panels. The initial reel, giving way to tentative curiosity. This could change everything, Mum. Green parts for EVs, drones, riding the wave of all those factory comebacks after the China tariffs. Sophia nodded, pulling up contract details on a tablet, numbers glowing, quarterly payouts starting soon, no liens or traps. But doubt lingered in his eyes, the master plan's brutality fresh. What if I'm not cut out for this after blowing it all? She squeezed his arm. That's the point. You hit bottom, now build up. The air buzzed with potential, the prototypes whirring softly. A stepping stone to partnership and purpose. The high stakes reveal teetering toward empowerment. Yet as night fell, stars pricking the big sky outside, the hidden clause in Richard's docks waited unspoken, a final twist ready to drop. Drawing them deeper into the turnaround's embrace, a hidden clause lets Ethan partner if he proves himself. They start revamping the site into a training hub for locals, teaching AI skills and creating jobs. Ethan dives in, finding purpose amid the Montana winds. As early royalties roll in, the revelation hung heavy in the warehouse air that evening, the prototype's soft whir filling the silence as Ethan processed it all. His face a storm of emotions, shock giving way to a flicker of something like hope, fragile as a new flame. Sophia watched him closely, the golden light fading through the grimy windows, casting long shadows across the concrete floor scattered with old toolboxes and coiled cables. There's more, Ethan, she said, pulling out a folder from her bag. the one Richard had left with the lawyer, sealed until this moment. She spread the papers on a dusty workbench, her fingers tracing the legalese. Your dad buried a clause in the will. The warehouse isn't just mine. You can co-own it, become a full partner. But there's a catch. You've got to prove yourself. Manage the ops, learn the ropes, show you can build something real instead of riding coattails. Ethan's eyes scanned the document, widening at the details. Equal shares upon demonstrating operational competence, as Richard had phrased it in his precise way. Prove myself? After everything I lost? Mom, I'm a screw-up. Blew the Malibu gig. Let Vanessa walk all over me. What if I tank this too? Sophia placed a hand on his arm, her voice steady like the hum of the machines. That's the beauty of it, son. Rock bottom's a solid foundation. Your dad believed in you, enough to let you fall so you'd learn to stand. Outside, the Montana winds picked up, rattling the metal siding like applause for a turning point, the big sky darkening to a velvet blue pricked with stars. They didn't waste time. The next morning dawned bright over Willow Creek, the kind of clear Montana day that made you feel like anything was possible, with crisp air carrying hints of sage and distant cattle lowing. Sophia and Ethan rolled up their sleeves, literally diving into the revamp like a pair of old pros tackling a fixer-upper. The warehouse, once a forgotten relic, buzzed with activity as they cleared out the cobwebs, Ethan hauling out rusted scrap with a rented dumpster, while Sophia fired up the AI interfaces, running diagnostics that lit up the screens like Christmas trees. First things first, she said over the whine of a power drill, securing loose panels on the wind turbines outside. We turn this into more than a cash cow, make it a hub for the locals. Willow Creek's hurting, kids leaving for city jobs, ranchers struggling with the economy. We teach them AI skills here, how to run these machining rigs, optimize for green manufacturing, tie into the reshoring wave. Companies like Ford are begging for skilled hands stateside. Ethan nodded, sweat beading on his brow as he wired up new outlets. His movements tentative at first, but gaining rhythm. Like apprenticeships, get folks certified in CNC programming, AI tweaks. She grinned, handing him a toolkit. Exactly. Sustainable jobs, parts for EVs, drones, all that jazz booming in 25. Your dad's contracts start paying out soon. We use the royalties to fund it. The idea sparked something in him, a purpose flickering to life amid the Montana winds whipping through the open bay doors, carrying the scent of fresh-cut hay from nearby fields. Ethan dove in headfirst, surprising even himself with the grit he unearthed, like digging up buried treasure from his own backyard. Over the following weeks, as fall deepened and leaves turned fiery red along the creek banks, he threw himself into the transformation, scouring online forums for AI tutorials during lunch breaks at the local diner, where he'd scarf down meatloaf specials and chat up regulars about job needs. "Hey, Earl," he'd say to the grizzled rancher at the counter, nursing black coffee. "Your boys good with computers? We're setting up classes at the old Monroe place, free to start, teaching how to program these smart machines for factory work." Word spread like wildfire in a small town, folks curious about the fancy tech reviving the warehouse. Ethan coordinated with Sophia, ordering modular desks and whiteboards on a shoestring budget, painting the walls a clean white to chase away the gloom. "Feels good, Mom," he admitted one afternoon as they tested a prototype run, the AI inheriting data from a sample EV part, whittling down waste by 35% in a demo that hummed smoothly. "Like I'm building something that sticks, not just chasing likes or luxury." Sophia nodded, pride swelling in her chest as she watched him troubleshoot a glitch. his hands steady now, calluses forming from real work. The Montana winds howled outside, but inside, purpose sheltered them, a buffer against the echoes of Malibu's collapse. As the first royalties rolled in that October, a fat wire transfer from Ford, hitting the account like manna from heaven, 400 grand to start, with promises of more quarterly, the turnaround gained steam, the funds fueling their vision. Sophia handled the paperwork, negotiating extensions with GE for turbine prototypes, while Ethan spearheaded the community outreach, posting flyers at the town hall and chatting up the high school principal about internships. "We're calling it the Montana Precision Hub," he announced over burgers at a roadside joint, his eyes lit with that old spark she hadn't seen since he was a kid tinkering in the garage. Classes start next month. AI basics, machining certs, even eco-design for sustainable parts. Locals get first dibs. We partner with tribes nearby for wind-powered add-ons. The money flowed smart. No flashy spends, just investments in laptops for the training room, safety gear stacked neatly on shelves, and a small ad in the local paper drawing in curious ranch hands and out-of-work mechanics. Ethan found his groove amid the windswept plains, rising early to jog the dirt roads, his mind clear for the first time in years, purpose anchoring him like roots in Montana soil. Dad was right, he confessed one evening, as they locked up under a sunset, streaking the sky in pinks and purples. Hitting bottom sucked, but this feels earned. Sophia hugged him, the warehouse transforming before their eyes. From dusty tomb to bustling beacon, jobs created one lesson at a time, the royalties a steady stream promising growth. Yet as the hub took shape, a subtle tension simmered. A step toward the story's deeper emotional layers, Ethan proving himself not just to the claws, but to his own doubts. One blustery day, with winds whipping dust devils across the gravel lot, he hit a snag. A prototype glitch during a test run for SpaceX specs, the AI faltering on a complex inheritance algorithm. "Damn it," he muttered, frustration boiling as error codes flashed red. Sophia stepped in, guiding him through the debug. "See here? Tweak the data inheritance loop. It's like teaching the machine from past mistakes." He fixed it, the rig purring back to life, but the moment lingered, shaking his confidence. "What if I'm not enough, Mum? After Vanessa, the foreclosures? Maybe Dad overestimated me." She shook her head, the winds tousling her hair. "You're diving in, that's the proof. The clause activates when you're ready, not perfect." As royalties padded the accounts, funding outreach that drew the first wave of locals, wide-eyed kids and weathered farmers eager for new skills, the partnership beckoned. Ethan's growth a quiet revolution, but whispers of Vanessa's shadow lingered, her divorce demands still trickling in via email, a reminder of unfinished business. The hub's launch loomed, a high-stakes test of his mettle, the winds carrying hints of redemption amid the Montana vastness, building toward closure's warm embrace. By late 2025, as November's chill settled over Willow Creek like a familiar blanket, the Montana Precision Forge had blossomed into something straight out of a feel-good small-town revival story, buzzing with the kind of energy that turned heads even in bigger cities like Billings or Missoula. Sophia stood in the revamped main hall one crisp afternoon, the once dusty warehouse now a sleek hub of activity, polished concrete floors gleaming under LED lights, rows of workstations where locals hunched over AI interfaces, the hum of CNC machines, carving out precision parts for EVs and wind turbines. The royalties had poured in steady as a mountain stream, ballooning from that first quarterly hit to over 1 million by fall. fueling expansions that Sophia and Ethan had dreamed up over greasy diner breakfasts. They'd partnered with nearby eco groups, hooking up with tribal lands for joint wind power projects, and even snagged a grant from a state green initiative fund amid the year's push for sustainable jobs. "Look at this place, Mum," Ethan said, striding up with a clipboard in hand, his flannel shirt rolled to the elbows, a far cry from the polished suits of his Malibu days. He gestured to a group of trainees, ranch kids, and laid-off mechanics, laughing as they debugged a simulation, screens flashing green with optimized toolpaths. "We hit 20 full-time gigs last month, and the waitlist for classes is out the door. Ford's upping their order, says our low-waste tech's cutting their carbon footprint big time." Sophia smiled, pride warming her like the sun slanting through the high windows, watching Ethan move with that newfound confidence, greeting folks by name, his calloused hands a badge of real work. The community boost was no small potatoes. Willow Creek felt alive again, the forge becoming a local landmark where Friday potlucks mixed with tech demos, kids wide-eyed at the whirring rigs, while parents signed up for night classes on AI basics. Ethan had thrown himself into it all summer, rising with the dawn to tweak algorithms, partnering with the high school for internships that kept young folks from bolting to the cities. "Feels like we're giving back, Mom," he'd say over coffee at the kitchen table in the small apartment they'd carved out above the offices, the scent of fresh brewed joe mingling with machine oil wafting up from below. The royalties rolled in like clockwork, checks from SpaceX for drone components, GE wiring funds for turbine prototypes, padding the books without a hint of debt, a stark contrast to the Malibu nightmare. Sophia handled the back end, negotiating deals that tied into 2025's reshoring frenzy. Companies scrambling to build stateside amid trade spats and supply glitches. But it was Ethan who shone, organizing eco-workshops with Indigenous elders, blending traditional knowledge with the AI's inheritance, smarts for sustainable designs. "Dad would have loved this," he confessed one evening as they locked up under a fiery sunset, the Montana winds whispering through the turbines like approval from beyond. Sophia nodded, her heart full, seeing her son rebound, turning failure's ashes into a thriving beacon, jobs sprouting like wildflowers after a rain. Yet as the forge thrived, a shadow from the past crept back in, twisting the narrative toward an unexpected reckoning that tested their hard-won peace. It started with a letter slipped under the door one foggy October morning, the envelope stamped from a California women's correctional facility, the handwriting unmistakably Vanessa's, neat but shaky, like her old signatures on those maxed-out credit card slips. Ethan found it first, during his morning rounds checking the wind arrays, his face paling as he slid it open amid the whir of blades overhead. "Mum, it's from her," he said later, handing it over in the office, the room bright with screens displaying production stats but heavy with sudden tension. Sophia scanned the pages, her tea forgotten on the desk, the words spilling out in a rush of remorse that felt both raw and rehearsed. "Ethan, Sophia, I know I have no right, but prison's given me time to think. That scam, peddling those bogus green investment funds to retirees, promising eco returns that were all smoke. I got caught, sentenced to 18 months. It's hell in here, but it's woken me up. I see now how I wrecked us, chasing status, ignoring the red flags, bailing when the going got tough." The plea hit like a gut punch, Vanessa admitting her greed, the way she'd treated Ethan like a meal ticket, Sophia like yesterday's news. But then they'll ask, "Your re-entry program at the Forge, I've read about it in the news clips we get. Helping folks fresh out, teaching skills for a second chance. If there's a spot, I'd take it. Start at the bottom, prove I've changed. No favors, just an opportunity to make amends. The letter stirred a whirlwind inside Sophia, stirring the pot of old resentments as she paced the office. The Montana winds howling outside like echoes of past storms. Ethan sat, stunned, crumpling the paper in his fist. Admitting her mistakes, that's new, but jail for a scam, hawking fake green funds, sounds like she pivoted from our mess to conning seniors out of their nest eggs. Figures. The final twist landed heavy. Vanessa's downfall a mirror to Ethan's own crash, but laced with criminal edges. News snippets they'd caught earlier about her arrest splashed across tabloids amid 2025's wave of investment fraud, buzz fueled by shaky markets. Sophia felt the emotional tug of war. Forgiveness warring with caution, the hub's re-entry program, designed for locals down on their luck, offering machining certs and life skills, a test of their growth. What do we do, Mom? Let her in after everything? Ethan's voice cracked, vulnerability surfacing like old wounds reopening. She sighed, glancing at the thriving floor below through the office window. Trainees high-fiving over a successful run, the AI humming contentedly. Your dad built this for redemption, son, maybe hers too. But no free rides. She earns it like everyone else. The plea hung there, a stepping stone to closure, challenging their themes of growth and second chances. The winds outside building like anticipation for the heartfelt resolution ahead. As days ticked toward Thanksgiving, the letter became a quiet catalyst, prompting late-night talks over pie at the local diner, Ethan wrestling with resentment while Sophia preached the long game. She's admitting mistakes. That's a start, she'd say, forking into pumpkin filling, the neon sign buzzing overhead. He nodded slowly, the forge's success bolstering his resolve. Eco-partnerships blooming with state grants, job placements hitting record highs amid the year's manufacturing rebound. But Vanessa's words lingered, her scam a dark echo of their Malibu folly, peddling green investments that promised windfall returns on phony solar schemes, busted by feds in a sting that made headlines. She's desperate now, Ethan mused, staring into his coffee. Prison's a far cry from infinity pools. The development added layers, a bridge to forgiveness, emphasizing how far they'd come. Ethan from broken heir to compassionate leader, the hub a symbol of sustainable second chances. Yet tension simmered, the decision looming like a fork in the road, drawing them toward an emotional peak. Grant her a spot and risk old hurts, or turn away and question their own growth? The Montana winds carried the weight, whispering of resolutions yet to unfold, the story's heart swelling with possibility amid the everyday grit of American reinvention. Ethan mulled over Vanessa's letter for days. The paper creased from endless folding and unfolding as the Montana Precision Forge hummed around him like a well-oiled engine in the crisp, late fall air of 2025. The winds had turned biting, carrying the first hints of winter snow from the Rockies, but inside the hub, warmth radiated from the glowing screens and the chatter of trainees fine-tuning AI algorithms for a new batch of EV components. Sophia gave him space, watching from the office loft as he paced the floor during breaks, clipboard forgotten in his hand. "It's your call, son," she'd said over breakfast one morning, steam rising from their mugs in the apartment kitchen, the scent of bacon frying on the old cast-iron skillet. "The re-entry program's about second chances, but only for folks willing to earn 'em. No handouts, that's not how we built this." Ethan nodded, his jaw set like he'd made up his mind in the quiet hours staring at the star-studded sky outside his window. "Fair shot, no special treatment. She starts at square one, like everyone else, sweeping floors if need be, learning the basics of machining before touching the AI stuff. He fired off a reply that afternoon, typing it out on his laptop amid the whir of prototypes. A straightforward letter via the prison mail system, outlining the terms: probationary trainee, minimum wage to start, performance reviews every month, prove you've changed, Vanessa, actions, not words. The decision hung in the air like a fresh coat of paint, a bridge to potential healing, but laced with the risk of old wounds reopening. Vanessa arrived 2 weeks later, just as Thanksgiving loomed, stepping off a Greyhound bus in Willow Creek with a single duffel bag slung over her shoulder, her once perfect bob now grown out and tied back simply, no trace of the designer labels that had defined her Malibu era. The town was decked in early holiday lights, strings twinkling on the main street's lampposts, the local diner advertising turkey specials, but her face was pale, eyes darting like a deer in headlights as Ethan met her at the stop. "Thanks for this," she muttered, avoiding his gaze, the wind tugging at her thin jacket. "I know I don't deserve it." He nodded curtly, leading her to the forge without fanfare, the gravel crunching under their boots. Sophia observed from the bay doors, her arms crossed, feeling a swirl of emotions, skepticism mixed with a reluctant hope, remembering Richard's words about redemption being the toughest engineering project of all. Vanessa started at the bottom as promised, mopping the training floor after classes, stacking safety gear, sitting in on beginner sessions where ranch hands learned to input basic data into the AI systems. No shortcuts. Ethan made sure of it, assigning her to a grizzled mentor named Hank, a former oil rig worker who'd turned his life around after a stint for DUI. "Watch and learn," Ethan told her on day one, his tone firm but fair, as the group huddled around a demo rig inheriting optimizations for a wind turbine blade. Vanessa nodded, hands clasped tight, her usual swagger replaced by a quiet determination that surprised even Sophia. As the weeks ticked toward Christmas, with the forge decked in modest garlands and a potluck tree in the break room adorned with handmade ornaments from the trainees, Sophia found herself watching Ethan, mentor not just the locals, but Vanessa too, his growth a quiet miracle unfolding like the first shoots after a harsh winter. One snowy afternoon, she leaned against the loft railing, overlooking the main floor where Ethan guided a class through a tricky inheritance algorithm. The AI learning from past errors to shave material waste on drone frames, screens flickering with green success indicators. "See here, folks," he said, his voice carrying that easy confidence honed from months of hands-on grit. "It's not about perfection on the first go. It's inheriting the smarts from what went wrong before. That's how we build sustainable, parts that last, jobs that stick." The group nodded, pencils scratching notes, but Sophia's eyes lingered on Vanessa in the back row, her brow furrowed in concentration as she typed commands on a shared laptop. Ethan caught her slip once, a basic coding error, and instead of snapping, he knelt beside her station. "Try tweaking the loop parameter. Remember, it's like teaching the machine your grandma's recipe. Pass down the tweaks that work." Vanessa flushed but nodded, fingers flying, and when the simulation succeeded, a small smile cracked her face. The first genuine one Sophia had seen since the will reading. It hit her then, reflecting on Richard's legacy amid the hub's hum. He'd orchestrated the chaos not just to save Ethan, but to ripple out, turning personal redemption into community strength. Sustainable tech mirroring sustainable lives. The emotional undercurrent built like a slow Montana sunrise, Sophia's reflections weaving through the daily rhythm. The royalties funding scholarships for more trainees, eco-partnerships blooming with state agencies pushing green manufacturing amid the year's climate summits. She thought of Richard often, his master plan a blueprint for resilience, the Malibu traps stripping illusions, the warehouse birthing real value, inheritance machining, a metaphor for passing wisdom through trials. "He knew you'd rise, Ethan," she said one evening as they reviewed production stats in the office, snow flurrying outside the frosted windows. "And look at you now, mentoring folks like Hank who just landed a gig at a wind farm, or that kid Maria, coding her way to a scholarship." Ethan leaned back, a weary but content smile crossing his face. "Feels right, Mum. Vanessa's trying. Caught her helping a newbie after hours yesterday. No fanfare, just doing the work. The admission hung there, a step toward forgiveness. The Hub's re-entry program proving its worth. Second chances earned through sweat, not silver spoons." Yet tension simmered subtly. Vanessa's progress a fragile thread, leading toward a heartfelt peak. Would she stick it out or bolt at the first sign of hardship? Sophia felt the swell, pride for Ethan's compassion clashing with guarded hope. The story's closure beckoning like holiday lights in the distance. They shared a quiet toast that Thanksgiving Eve, the forge empty save for the two of them in the break room. A bottle of local craft beer cracked open. Nothing fancy, just cold and crisp, bubbles fizzing like new beginnings. "To real grit," Ethan said, clinking his bottle against hers, the room warm with the scent of leftover potluck pie. "Not illusions or easy money, but building something that lasts." Sophia nodded, tears pricking her eyes as she embraced the future they'd forged. Ethan a leader now, the Hub a thriving heart of Willow Creek, jobs flowing like the creek itself amid 2025's economic thaw. Vanessa lingered in the background, her tentative steps a redemptive arc, proving change was possible when earned. As snow blanketed the Montana plains outside, Sophia reflected one last time on Richard, his love a tough engineer, designing failure to birth strength. Illusions shattered for truths that endured. They hugged then, mother and son, the winds howling approval. The story closing on a note of quiet triumph. Family rebuilt on grit, legacies inherited through heart. Not just machines.